Welcome to the Pastor's Wife Talk Show with Pastor Chika Amadi, a program aimed at making God's way known, equipping the saints and highlighting the power of the gospel to bring holiness to the hurting world through His people and their testimonies.
You are great, yes, you are Holy One. Walked upon the sea, raised the dead. You reign in majesty, mighty God. Everything written about you is great. You are 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 great. Oh.
Hello, viewer. Good to have you today. This is Pastor Chika Amadi. I'm really glad to come your way. I want you to tune in today. We have something very important to discuss. And I have somebody very important. In the social and political atmosphere, there are a lot of things going on. And Christians, this is a time for us to listen up. We need to listen up. So I have with me today the leader of the Christian People's Party, the CPA party, to discuss about the current affairs, what is happening, and the way forward for Christians. Because I, for one, I believe that in as much as we have pastors preaching on the altars, we have evangelists, we have missionaries, we also need Daniels in the palaces, we need Josephs, we also need a lot of people who will go out there and influence policies. And today, the leader of the Christian People's Party happens to also be a pastor. He looks after a church, he oversees a church, but the Lord has called him into the political realm, and so he leads that party. And we have him today, and it's my pleasure to bring to you Sid. Cordle. It's my pleasure having you, Sid.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Today, Sid, we have really important issues to discuss. But I want you to tell viewers a bit of what you stand for, your Christian views, and then the party you lead.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me on. To me, as you say, we need to have a Christian voice in the nation. And there's no Christian voice coming out from any of the other political parties, so we need a Christian voice. I don't think it's always been like that. I think there's been times in the past where there have been strong Christians whose voices have been heard in some of the other political parties. But the way things are at the moment, that has very much changed. So we need to have our own party that is 100% committed to God. You see, it's interesting, one of the things that Jesus said was, he who will save his life must lose it. But if you lose your life for my sake, you find it. It wasn't sort of like, well, you know, if you adopt the principles that I'm putting forward and think carefully about some things I'm saying, I'm sure they can influence your thinking. No, Jesus didn't say that. He said, the kingdom of heaven, it's like a pearl of great price, which if you find it, you sell all that you've got and you get this pearl. That's what it's like. You've got to give up everything. And we need to have an attitude within all of our lives where God comes first. And that's what we represent. We represent God coming first and being in charge of what we say. And all our policies that we seek to put forward, we seek to come from a simple approach of saying, God, what is your will?
Amen. That's amazing. Exactly. At this time is one of the best times that this nation, we need to hear from God. Yeah. And what an amazing thing to have a political party that's ready, the leader, and those working with you are ready to say, Lord, what do you have us to do? Exactly. And that's why you stood up. Now, Christians, we are praying. We are praying for revival, we are praying for change in the social environment, in the political environment, in the spiritual atmosphere. But I also believe that we need people who will go out there. So, can you give us a brief about the policies that CPA stand for?
Okay, yes, by all means. I mean, I think perhaps I also want to say, before I just do that, that Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice and I know them and they follow me. So I believe the project that we're involved in only works if you can hear God's voice. You see, if you can hear God's voice, you can say, okay, what is your heart for this situation? You can find a problem like Syria. You say, well, Syria, what's God's heart for Syria? Now, it may not be obvious, but as you ask God and you sit and listen, you hear God saying, well, my heart is to protect the civilian population. So you say, okay, well, safe havens. So yeah, okay, so suddenly the Christian People's Alliance policy for Syria is to have safe havens to protect the population. So it's not all about killing people, it's not all about taking power, it's about protecting. And that's what we believe the international community should primarily be doing, protecting the civilians. So they're not all having to flee, but there can be zones where people can go to. And as you protect the civilians, you're actually gaining the moral high ground. You see, what you don't achieve an awful lot sometimes in these wars by just fighting and killing, because different sides are killing each other and it just carries on, more killing, more killing, more killing. But if you come with a different atmosphere, a different approach, and say, we've just come to protect, we've just come to care for the vulnerable, we've just come to look after those affected, we've not come to kill anybody. You're coming with a different heart and a different approach, and that can undermine the whole moral integrity of the whole of the people that you're opposing, the people that are just fighting and killing. So that's where we come from. So I've talked to you about one policy. Another example of that is the issue of Trident. You say, okay, what's God's heart for Trident? You see, if you say on the one hand, you say, okay, if we say yes, we want Trident, could we as Christians press a button and kill millions of people? You say, no, I can see that.
Sorry, let me just come in there. A lot of people may not know what Trident is if they're not political. Can you break it down a bit?
Okay, yeah, well, Trident is the nuclear weapon that Britain has.
Okay.
So the question I'm asking is, what is the Christian approach to nuclear weapons? The government at the moment is proposing to spend some £60 billion on updating our nuclear weapons.
Okay.
So the question is, should we support it or should we not? It's a problem that the Labour Party have wrestled with in many ways, because Jeremy Corbyn is all his life, political life, has been opposed to nuclear weapons. There's obviously been a campaign for nuclear disarmament. There's had a lot of supporters within the Labour Party. So there's been a real battle there as should we support it, should we not. Now in the last manifesto the Labour Party said yes, we do support Trident, even though the leader was saying no, we don't. But I'm saying, well, we as a Christian, where do we fit in the argument? Now, one of the weaknesses of the Labour position is they say, okay, we'll get rid of all nuclear weapons, or those that think like that, and say, okay, well, what defence will there be? How will you defend us then? And the answer is like, well, we'll rely on talking to the Russians, we'll talk to them, and we believe as we talk to them that they won't attack us. But that approach is quite naive, really. But so what we need is to have what is God's heart, what is God saying? Because, you know, I understand the argument that if we have a nuclear deterrent, it can stop people from firing a nuclear weapon at us, and it's a duty of government to defend its citizens. Okay. But as we sit and listen, we hear actually God saying that what we need is a missile shield.
Missile shield?
Missile shield. Now, that's what they have in Israel, and it's working effectively. They've actually got 3 different types of missile shield. Okay. One for short-term missiles, one for medium-term missiles, and one for long-range missiles. Okay. Now, in this new modern world we've got, where Pakistan has got nuclear weapons, Iran is obtaining nuclear weapons, different other countries are getting nuclear weapons, we're no longer in a position where it's only Russia that's the problem. And if we've got a mutually assured destruction, Russia won't attack us. We've got all these other nations to think about. And the Islamic mindset isn't, oh, well, if you kill us, then we won't fire anything at you because you might kill us. I mean, the Islamic mindset, you know, for the Islamic extremists is, well, if we die, we're going to go to this paradise, and we don't care if you kill us. All we're interested in is whether we can kill you. So we believe that God's heart is to have a missile shield in the UK. And we should be spending our money, rather than spending it on offensive weapons, on proper protection. And we're developing new technology as well, which can actually lock onto incoming missiles and divert them into the ocean. So we believe our defence priority should be missile shields and developing the technology to prevent missiles attacking us. Now, We actually believe that that is common sense. And when we put forward that policy, which we're the only party putting forward the policy, people say, yeah, that's good, it's a good policy, and it's the right policy.
Absolutely, that's really powerful. Missile shield. So
shield.
Instead of the missiles coming in or having our own to defend, these missiles will push away, this shield will push away the missiles into the ocean.
Yes.
That sounds really reasonable. CPA, that's really good policy. Briefly, in the atmosphere right now, we're hearing about issues on abortion. What is the stand of CPA?
Okay, well that's obviously coming now to more of our core issues.
Yes.
So some of our core issues are the importance of marriage and the sanctity of life. And abortion fits into obviously the sanctity of life. And we believe life should be protected from conception until natural death. So there's nothing scientifically that goes on from the moment of conception up to the moment of birth that says that now we have a baby and now we don't have a baby. It's just a slow development. The whole process is part of the development. And there's nothing really that happens at birth that means that at birth you have a baby, before birth you don't. I mean, it's quite clear that you have a baby inside the mother's womb before birth. So we believe life should be protected from conception. And we have detailed policies that says what we should do initially. Now, we've got to take the public with us. So initially what we want is it compulsory for anyone considering an abortion to look at the alternatives, including the alternative of adoption, which in many cases may be available even within the family. So you might have a grandparent, for instance, that would say, yes, I'll adopt this child. But that option has to be looked at. And then we'll also say we would outlaw gender abortions and most abortions on the ground of disability. It's interesting, at the moment, 90% of Down syndrome children are being aborted. And it's interesting that I actually saw one statistic that actually said that over 80% of the public think it's wrong to just abort Down syndrome children.
And we see a lot of Down syndrome children doing very well,
exactly.
Men and women. So what we are saying in essence is that the CPA stands against just open door to everybody to have abortion.
Exactly. But we're not saying today we've got basically abortion on demand, tomorrow we'll stop all abortions. We're saying we've got to do this step by step. So the first step is to make people consider alternatives, to stop gender abortions, which is just simply because the child is the wrong sex, and stop most of the disability abortions. And the other thing is we would give the fetus rights, like the right not to suffer pain, which, given the fetus rights, can also stop a lot of abortions. So we would introduce these first steps to reduce the number of abortions, and then as we went on, as the abortions are reduced, and as people realise that this is wrong, we would hope eventually to eliminate it altogether.
That's powerful. Well, we'll continue on this line when we come back after the break.
The following programme is sponsored by partners of the Pastor's Wife Talk Show, a programme aimed at making God's way known, equipping the saints and highlighting the power of the gospel to bring holiness to the hurting world through His people and their testimonies.
I want to ask you, have you been benefiting from this program, the Pastor's Wife Talk Show? If it has been benefiting you, please let other people know about it. Let them tune in every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Also, you can get in touch with us through our email, or you can give us a call. And if you have upcoming programs, please get in touch. We will be glad to air your program. And if you also want to be financial supporter, you want to be one of our partners, I'll be very, very glad to have you.
Everything about you is great. You are 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 great. Oh yeah. You are great. Say you are great. You are great. Say you are great. You are great. Everything, yeah. Everything about you is great.
Welcome back. Well, we're discussing issues of abortion under the CPA policy, Christian People's Alliance policy, the stance on abortion. That is very important because as Christians, we believe in sanctity of life. Now, I know CPA has other policies, but there's something I want us to discuss. You know, currently there is a trend on morality. Things are coming out now. Standards, everybody's talking about standards. But you know, what baffles me is, how can you have standards outside Jesus? Now they don't want to hear about the society is averse to the gospel. Children are not, you know, you can't even bring the gospel in the schools. You can't talk about gospel anyhow. And so how are people talking about standard when they have eroded standard? It's something that I don't understand. Because I see a lot of people on the streets, void, living their lives void, where Jesus is supposed to settle in. But because they don't have Jesus, things have gone upside down. Now everybody is screaming, standard has gone. What do you have to say on that?
Okay, well, there's one thing that Jesus said, was that in the last days it said lawlessness will increase. See, so what you're talking about really is an increase in lawlessness. Because God's laws, which are very clear, that man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Marriage is between a man and a woman, and it is for life. All of a sudden, lawlessness says, why should it be only between a man and a woman? Why can't two men get married? Lawlessness says, why should it be for life? Why can't I get divorced if I'm not happy? See, so it's kicking against God's laws and God's plans. And we're seeing it viciously with things like transgender. Okay, God's made me a man, but I don't want to be a man, I want to be a woman. I'm not interested in how God has made me. This is what I want to be. And it's putting what you want above how God has made you. Now, sometimes there can be difficult situations, and we don't condemn people for difficult problems and difficulties they've had in life. But we stand for the principles. And the principles are God's standards and God's laws. And the problem is in secularism, there are no laws, there are no rules. You see, everything is subjective. It's what I want. It's how I want to be. It's God that has given us the good moral standards which we choose to live by. And those are absolutely the moral standards that we support.
That's fantastic. Now, I want to ask you, how important is it that we have believers in politics? Because there are still majority of Christians that believe that our faith should be limited in the pews, in the church halls. Now we leave the running of the country in the hand of most of them unbelievers, and we are complaining. How can we get Christians to be really involved in politics?
Well, people need to be called by God, and that's what we're trusting God to do.
Yes. Yeah.
But to increase the Christian People's Alliance, I mean, in the last general election we had 31 candidates. In 2015 we had 17 candidates. Wow. So we're increasing, but what we want to get to is a position where we've got 100 candidates very quickly, and then hopefully move to having 500 candidates, so we have candidates at least in most seats. Once we can get to a position where we've got people in place in most seats, then we can really push an agenda that says vote for the Christian People's Alliance. And the problem is, at the moment, we can't really go around the country saying vote for the Christian People's Alliance, because people say, well, I'd love to, but I haven't got a candidate in my area. So our focus first has got to be on getting the candidates in place. And that's what I'm working on very hard, and getting groups to meet in different areas of the country, and those groups all supporting candidates and so on and so forth. We are increasing the structure. Now, we absolutely need to have this Christian voice. It's not any Christian voice, because there are many people who claim to be Christians, but they've compromised in one way or another. I think, sadly, without wishing to be too personal, an example was Tim Farron. Because Tim Farron says, I'm a Christian. But even though I'm a Christian, I'm willing to take on board what are Lib Dem policies. Lib Dem policies were to support gay marriage, to support abortion, and not have any objection to homosexuality. He says, okay, they're not my beliefs, but because I'm leader of the Liberal Democrats, I'll support them as party policy. But then the media decided to push him one step further. So, okay, you're supporting those things as party policy, but you don't really support them yourself, do you? So they then said to him, do you believe homosexuality is sin? Now, he tried for a long time to avoid the question. No, I don't want to answer that question. But then, in the end, they forced him to answer the question. He said, okay, I'll say it's not sin. And then he compromised on abortion and said, okay, I'll say abortion is okay. But then, despite that, after when the election was over, there were people in the party that said, you don't really support party policy, do you? You have done reluctantly, but you don't really support these things. You're not really in favour of gay marriage. You're not really in favour of abortion. So we don't want you to lead the party anymore. And then in the end, he resigned and said, it's actually impossible now to be a Christian in one of the main parties. That's what he said. That's what Tim said.
Yes.
So
it's not true.
Well, I think it's increasingly true. Funnily enough, we've had Robert Fleller, who was a Labour MP. He lost his seat in 2017, but he said it's no longer possible now to oppose abortion within the Labour Party. I was just at a meeting this last Saturday with Murdo McLeod for the Israel-Britain Alliance, and he said it's increasingly difficult to support Israel within the Labour Party. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to be a Christian voice within the mainstream parties, increasingly hard. So what you tend to find, this doesn't apply to every MP, by the way. There are some MPs like Fiona Brooks, who's literally said, God comes first in my life. And I don't care what happens in the party. I don't want to be in government. You know, I'm not interested in taking position. I'm just here in Parliament to stand for God, which is great, which is fantastic. And I've been told that every one of the DUP MPs are committed Christians. And the DUP party, as a party, has certainly taken a position that says, it doesn't matter what you say, we're not going to give in on same-sex marriage, we're not going to give in on abortion, we're not going to give on what for us are key moral issues, because the foundation of that party was standing for God. So it's not every MP, but it's increasingly difficult to be a strong Christian within the mainstream parties. So to be a Christian in politics cannot be about, well, I'm a Christian, but I'm happy to compromise. That is not true Christianity. We've got to have true Christianity that says God comes first. And in order to pursue that going forward, I believe we need our own party.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, that's what you said is very graphic. It's the same. It also can apply in workplaces. I have discovered that a lot of people, a lot of Christians, when they are looking for a job, they are praying, God give me a job, God give me a job, and they make themselves very desperate. Now, when they get desperate, they get a job, and the first demand of the job is the same Sunday you were going to pray, God give me a job. That's the first thing that the devil wants to take away from you, and that you must work on Sunday. But, you know, if God comes first, I will encourage Christians to say, Sunday is my worship day. I can work any other day, and it will be respected. It was respected in my case, and I've never worked on a Sunday. The same thing happens in politics, that Christians should first say, what is God saying? What is God saying? This is God's will, and I'm going to stand for that. And once people know that this is what you stand for, they will not push you. But if you don't say it, you compromise first, then you come out and say, oh, my faith is against that. You've lost the ground. So what you're saying is that the best bet is for us to have, like the DUP, to have a Christian party that we know that, look, this is what we believe in, and we are not moving our ground. And if all of us can join that party, I think we can make a great difference.
Yes, absolutely. There's one other thing which I'd like to say, because people will say, well, as a Christian party, how will you ever take power? Because you'll never have enough Christians in order to win power. We're not only interested in the votes of Christians. Our vision, as I described earlier, is that we stand 100% for God, we listen to God, and we believe that God's wisdom is above all else. So we believe anybody, whether they're Christian, non-Christian, secular, can look at the policies that we're putting forward and say, yes, those policies are the best policies for the country. So we believe if we're in the right position, we're listening to God, we're receiving from God what are God's heart for the nation. We're putting forward policies that anyone can say, this party has the best policies. That's our vision. And we believe it's on that basis that we can take control of the country.
Amazing. That's really good. So the CPA party, Christian People's Alliance, just check it out online. The CPA has policies and practices, so go online and find out how you can join in and pray for the party as well. Until next time, we'll see you again. Look after yourself. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Pastor's Wife talk show today with Pastor Mrs. Chika Amadi. This talk show is proudly sponsored by Good News Ministries International Church, a Bible-believing church under the leadership of Barrister Pastor George Amadi and Councillor Pastor Chika Amadi, based in Wembley, Middlesex, United Kingdom. For more information, please contact us now. 0208 861 0772, 07859 883 653. Chrome Legal Services, specialist in complex immigration services, bail applications, advocacies, representation in tribunal, visas and appeal, overstayer, failed asylum seeker or illegal entry. Please call us now on 0208 861 0772. Mama Caliber Restaurant, specialist in African food and drinks varieties. Come and sample traditional African cooking in a comfortable setting. We're located at 90 to 92 High Street, Edgware, Middlesex, HA8 7HF. Contact info for special occasion catering booking 0208 952 8653. Mama Caliber Restaurant. Excellent value for money, friendly atmosphere and great tasting food. Jammin' Sauces, the spicy sauce that has no calories or preservatives but adds extra spicy flavour to your cooking. For more information or to make an order, please contact us on 074 111 56 403. Email jamminsauces@gmail.com.
We bless your name. You are so worthy, Lord, worthy to be worshipped.
Thank you for watching the Pastor's Wife talk show today with Mrs. Chika Amadi. We hope you have been blessed and empowered. See you same time next week on this platform. God bless you.